It is World Junior season, and on today's show, we're breaking down the USA training camp roster and predicting who might be challenging for MVP and top scorer status and what the line combinations might look like.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian Heil, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we're breaking down the American training camp roster for the World Junior Championships. We're going to be looking at which players made the cut, which players might still be cut in the coming weeks before the tournament kicks off on Boxing Day, and looking at line combinations and who might just be challenging for MVP and top scorer status on this team and where they might finish, whether they are able to win a third World Junior Championship in a row or if they end up as a silver or bronze medalist. All of that here coming up. We're going to be kicking off the show by just looking at the players that are included. Then we're going to be looking at the line combinations. And finally, we'll be wrapping things up with our predictions. So make yourselves comfortable, lean back, get yourself something to drink. I have a nice coffee here to sip on this very cold December day. And let's just kick things right off because we have a lot to talk about on today's show. Last week, we already made an episode with our predictions of the players that would make the cut for this team. And for the most part, that video has aged very nicely. Most players, I think, the vast majority of players that I thought would make it have. And I think the line combinations that we talked about last time around are still probably some of the most likely ones, but we've shifted a couple things around. So we do have a couple new things to look at here, but let's just dig in with the players that have made the cut for this roster. And we'll kick things off with the blue line, then we'll look at the forwards, and finally we'll wrap things up with the defensemen. So this roster, I think, is very interesting. It's a lot of talent. There's a bit of a mix of older players that are eligible, like 19-year-olds, as well as one draft eligible who I really, really, really want to see at this tournament. And I do have him making the cut for this roster. And that's Chase Reid from the Sioux Greyhounds in the OHL, a player who got cut from a USHL roster last season, headed to the NAHL, and then ended up switching over to the CHL. And ever since then, he's now established himself not only as a top draft eligible for the 2026 draft class, but as a player that with his two-way intelligence, mobility, physical involvement, defensive IQ, is challenging for first overall, or at least top 3 in this draft class. And I think he'd be a great addition to this roster for the USA. So Chase Reid is a player to definitely keep an eye on. Another guy who's been really taking massive strides recently is Dakota Rhéaume-Mullen, the left shot defenseman from the University of Michigan, went undrafted last season, but has been an integral part of their offense here this campaign, leading the charge from the blue line and really showing his mobility, two-way play as being a key area of strength. Luke Osburn's another intelligent left shot defenseman who made the jump to the NCAA here this season with the University of Wisconsin. Player I've loved for a long time with that intelligence, with just being stable, good connector of play in the offensive zone, strong in the breakout, strong rush defender, just really, really reliable all around. I expect him to play a top 4 role at this tournament, and he will be joined by his Wisconsin teammate Logan Hensler, the first round pick of the Ottawa Senators from this past draft class, is certainly going to be eyeing a big role at this tournament to establish himself as a top prospect, and I think that he's certainly well on his way to kind of forging that role here with that high-end mobility and just like ability to make things happen in all 3 zones. And he's kind of toned down the chaos a bit here this campaign and is just becoming all the more solid. Blake Fiddler, another top draft pick from last year, of the Edmonton Oil Kings, was a Seattle second-round pick, 36th overall this past draft. Another guy that brings lots of mobility, lots of physicality, 6'5", 213 pounds. He is a bit more chaotic, and I think he might get cut. I personally wouldn't cut him if I were the one making the roster choices here this season, but I think the U.S. might want to favor veteran presence and solidity over potential game-breaking on-puck ability, which Fiddler does have, but there's other guys in this lineup that bring the same type of skill sets. Henry Brzustewicz is one such player, the first-round pick of the LA Kings in 2025 from the London Knights organization, has been playing a much bigger role here this season, but London has certainly struggled with all of their graduations to the pro ranks here this season, and he's a -16 on the season, but what he does bring is strong mobility and offensive awareness. So for a potential second power play quarterback, he could certainly be worth giving a look and bringing along to the tournament. But the two defensemen I expect to play the most minutes at this tournament are Cole Hutson, who led the USA in points at last World Juniors en route to a gold medal victory, and his pairing mate, EJ Emery, who is much more of a shutdown presence. Of course, he was a first-round pick of the New York Rangers in 2024, and Cole Hutson was a second-rounder for Washington in that same draft. I think those two are going to be playing big matchup minutes, but also creating a lot from the blue line, especially down that left-hand flank with Cole Hutson. So the D-core is looking really good. And overall, I think that this is a lineup of players that can certainly be making a pretty big impact here this campaign. And sorry, the last player I forgot to mention is one I've liked for a long time, another Buffalo Sabres draft pick, and that's Adam Kleber. If you want a big shutdown defenseman playing down the lineup from EJ Emery, Kleber's your guy. 6'5", 210 pounds, second-round pick in 2024 by the Sabres. And this guy is a shutdown presence through and through. I think he'll be a top 6 guy at this tournament. Just really tough to play against, very intelligent defensively, and has enough mobility and puck-moving skill to progress the puck up the ice. Then a quick fire here for the forward core. We've got a strong two-way center with a high motor in Camille Bednarik from Boston University and the New York Islanders draft pick in 2024. Trevor Connelly, of course, one of the higher skill players in this lineup with high-end handling and skating and playmaking, good shot from range, playing with the Henderson Silver Knights in the AHL this campaign after being selected 19th overall by Vegas in 2024, as well as Cole Eiserman, who's another one of these high-end offensive guys, but it's just all the shot with this player. The best shot at the entire tournament. He'll be looking to challenge for the goal-scoring lead at this tourney, probably playing top 6 minutes for the USA here after being selected 20th overall by the Isles just over a year ago. And of course, James Hagens will be the go-to guy on the offense, just as he was last season. But this year is going to be, it's his team. He has the reins. He's going to be the first-line center, 7th overall pick from the Boston Bruins this past draft, and playing well with Boston College, but perhaps not quite as dominant this season as the Bruins organization, their fans, and overall just hockey fans in general may have hoped for, but this is his big tournament. Will Horcoff has been on fire with the University of Michigan, scoring almost a goal a game here this campaign after being picked by the Pittsburgh Penguins at 24th overall here this past draft. Brings size, net front presence, intelligence, good shot, finishing ability in tight. This guy will be a standout in the top 6 here at the World Junior Championship. Jacob Kvasnica was invited. This is perhaps the one surprise I had, that I wasn't really expecting to be invited to this camp, who's been playing with the Penticton Vs in the WHL here this campaign. After playing with the NTDP last year. And he was a 7th round selection by the Islanders this past draft. What he brings is motor. So if they bring him along as an extra forward, I can understand it. I personally just think that there are better players for those roles available to them. So he may get the cut rather than making the squad at the end of the day. But interesting to see if he ends up competing for a roster spot here in camp. Riker Lee is going to be another one of these depth, high-skill guys for Team USA, playing really good hockey for Michigan State University after being a 26th overall pick for the Nashville Predators. Great shot, elite level handling skill. He can break games open in a pinch. Cole McKinney will be an ideal bottom six high motor center for this team. Been playing that role to perfection for the University of Michigan here this season as well. Brendan McMorrow, a player who's one of the older guys on this squad, playing good hockey with the University of Denver this season after earning a 7th round selection this past draft in his second year of eligibility. LJ Mooney, I think, could be like the ideal 13th forward to bring along that you can plug and play anywhere up and down your lineup. He has the motor to hang in a bottom six. He has the skill and speed and playmaking ability to elevate guys in the top six. So if there's an injury that arises, I think bringing along a guy like LJ Mooney could be a massive, massive benefit for this team that can just plug again anywhere that you need him to play. Max Plante has been among the top players in the entire NCAA this season for the University of Minnesota. 2nd-round pick from the Detroit Red Wings in 2024, has really had a breakout campaign this season. And I think in terms of a playmaking role to elevate Cole Eiserman in the top six, he could be the perfect guy for that. AJ Spellacy from the Windsor Spitfires and the Chicago Blackhawks organization is a big north-south speedy physical winger that plays like a running back because he was a running back. He played football as well growing up as a dual sport athlete, and he is just an absolute tank. So I think the U.S. are certainly going to want to have him on the squad, whether it be as an extra forward or an ideal fourth-line presence. He is fantastic. And finally, the last three guys here among the forwards are Teddy Stiga, who I expect to be a top-line forward here this season, or this tournament, after also scoring the OT gold medal winning goal last campaign, playing as well with Boston College. He's got some good chemistry with James Hagens and is just the ideal fit, I think, on that top line, as well as Brody Ziemer, who I expect to play with Hagens and Stiga on that top line, bring some physicality, middle drive. He can play at the net front, has a lot of leadership capabilities as well. He might be the captain of this team. He should be getting some important minutes as well, who is, again, another Buffalo Sabres prospect here. And last but not least, Shane Vansaghi as the ideal crash and bang fourth liner, can play the net front, good shot, play again up and down the lineup as well, wherever you might need him. But if everyone's healthy, I think he's the perfect shutdown fourth line guy for this team. And in net, we've got Caleb Heil, Nick Kempf, and AJ Reyelts, who've made the cut. These are all 6'2" netminders, very similar frames all around. I think goaltender is probably the weakest position for this team, but I expect Caleb Heil and Nick Kempf to kind of joust it out for the starting position. Probably going to Nick Kempf as the only NCAA-er among the netminders here this season. But that wraps up the first segment. In the next one, we're going to look at the line combinations. But before we do that, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so very exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds in front of you. Every drive, every momentum shift, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover, and FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, and you can even bet on the next touchdown scores, drive results, and totals. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, let's keep this show rolling here as we're starting to look at what the lineup might look like. And if you want to look at what that is in terms of just on paper, I will have that noted in the description down below if you want to kind of tag along at these line predictions. But for the first forward line, as I was mentioning in the last segment, I've got Teddy Stiga, James Hagens, and Brody Ziemer. Stiga brings a lot of speed and playmaking up the wing. Hagens does the same up the middle as the true offensive driver of this team, while Brody Ziemer can be that strong F1, got a very high motor. Same thing with Stiga. You got two hardworking wingers here to complement James Hagens, but Ziemer has a good shot, can finish off chances. He's quite opportunistic, especially at the net front when the loose pucks start rolling around. Those are the types of goals that you want to also capitalize on with your top line when they create uncomfortable moments for opposing defenses. I think those three guys would work really nicely together and could really be dominant in terms of tilting the ice in the USA's favor. For the second line, I'm going with Cole Eiserman at left wing as the sniper, William Horcoff as the physical, intelligent center presence, and Max Plante as the playmaker from right wing. I think these three guys complement each other really nicely. All three are excelling in college hockey this season, playing against very physical opposition. Eiserman's also added a physical dimension to his play. Horcoff dominates the game physically with that 6'5" frame, plays a very middle-driven style as well, and has the IQ for just quick little one-touch passes to connect plays between his wingers. And Max Plante can just create offensive opportunities seemingly out of nothing. I think those three guys are going to work really nicely together. And also with Horcoff, I think you have a good enough defensive presence to maybe insulate Cole Eiserman a bit in that top six. On the third line, I think this is where the USA's depth really starts shining through, and where they just have a level of quality that beats out every other roster other than the Canadians, arguably, because you have a top 20 pick in Trevor Connelly, and one of the top offensive guys probably at this entire tournament, playing outside the top six for this team. Maybe he makes the cut ahead of Max Plante in the top six, but I think that separating him and Eiserman makes sense because they can both be defensive black holes if things aren't going their way. And to insulate Trevor Connelly, I've got Camille Bednarik, who's a very physical, high motor center, can win you faceoffs, play hard defensively. Not going to be the most creative guy offensively, but he doesn't need to be on this line with Trevor Connelly and Riker Lee of the Nashville Predators and Michigan State University. He's gotten a really good start to life in college hockey and has handling skill that can beat out basically every other player on this roster. Like, he can really create something out of absolutely nothing. And that top nine is just absolutely gross for the USA in terms of skill and creative ability. The fourth line, I think this is a fun one as a matchup line, a shutdown line, a heavy, hard-hitting line with AJ Spellacy, Cole McKinney, and Shane Vansaghi. All of these three guys have separating motors, play really intense, middle-driven physical games, and can also score off the rush, off the cycle. They're hard to play against, hard to take the puck off of. And I think that those three guys you can match up against any top line of any team in this tournament, including Team Canada, and they will deliver a strong defensive performance while also being able to grind them down with their physical play. And for the two extra forwards to kind of plug in wherever you need them to. Because again, for the World Junior Championships, this is a roster of 25 players, which most teams will be going with 14 forwards, so 4 forward lines plus 2, 8 defensemen, 4 pairings, and 3 goaltenders. And I think the 2 extra forwards here are going to be LJ Mooney of the University of Minnesota and the Montreal Canadiens for, again, as I mentioned in the last segment, playing up and down the lineup, plug and play wherever you might need him. And Brendan McMorrow, who is a high motor guy that can just plug into your fourth line if you need a guy from the fourth line to move up your lineup or gets injured in any case. He's a guy that has just the relentless motor to kind of play that role and have that line not miss a beat. That means that the one cut among forwards for me personally would be Jacob Kvasnica. I don't see him being quite the same level as the rest of these players, but let me know if you disagree down below. Among the defensive core, we already mentioned Hutson and EJ Emery are going to be the top pair. I don't think that's shifting in any case. They know each other. They have good chemistry. They're very complementary. Left shot, right shot, offensive blue liner, defensive blue liner, small guy, big guy. They're a perfect match, in my opinion. For the second pairing, you've got Luke Osburn and Logan Hensler, 2 players that know each other well. They're both in University of Wisconsin's roster this season. And I think that they have also complementary toolkits. Hensler has that physicality as well, big body, high-end mobility, offensive flash, quite disruptive defensively, but can have a couple brain farts here and there that go back the other way. Luke Osburn's the type of guy that can clean those things up in his own end and really insulate Hensler and allow Hensler to just be a bit more offensively involved than he would be with another defenseman on his left. For the third pairing, another kind of nice balance, I think. You have Dakota Rhéaume-Mullen on the left side, again, playing really good hockey with UMich this season, and that mobility, puck moving skill, and offensive flashes that are coming more and more regularly this campaign, I think would pair really nicely with Adam Kleber as a shutdown, massive right shot defender there on the third pairing. I think this top six is just really balanced. There's a lot of different toolkits, a lot of versatility. You can mix and match these players for different types of line combinations. If you want one true shutdown pairing and one true offensive pairing, you can shift that around, make it work that way. And for the fourth pair, I'm going with Henry Brzustewicz and Chase Reid. Two guys that are on the younger side among defenders that got the invite here for this tournament. Chase Reid, the youngest guy, the only draft eligible that made the cut for the training camp roster. They're both right shot defensemen, but I think they could work quite nicely together. They both move the puck well. They both move well. And I think Chase Reid could also insulate Henry Brzustewicz a bit defensively, which I think is perhaps the weaker part of Brzustewicz's game. And that means that the two guys that I see getting released from this roster are Asher Barnett and Blake Fiddler. I'd love to see Fiddler making this cut. I could see it happening ahead of Brzustewicz. We'll see what happens there. I just think that historically that USA Hockey has favored Brzustewicz over Fiddler in different tournaments. So I'm going with this personally, but I think there's a lot of debate to be had, and this is probably the toughest decision to make for this roster amidst the three cuts that still have to be made between now and Boxing Day. And then in goal, we've got Nick Kempf as the starter. Been playing decent enough hockey with Notre Dame. He's in his sophomore season this year. He's hovering just under a 900 save percentage, playing college hockey. He's the only NCAA goaltender here among the three invited, and I think that just gives him a real advantage over his two competitors. Caleb Heil is putting up similar numbers to Nick Kempf, but in the USHL with Madison Capitals in his second season there with that team. And he's solid enough, but not the type of goaltender that wins you games. And this is probably the weakest part of the roster here, in my opinion, but definitely interested to see how the goaltending shakes out. And the third guy playing in the WHL with Penticton is AJ Reyelts, who, again, also kind of similar numbers. They're all 6'2" netminders who are putting up just slightly sub 900 save percentages here so far this season. So not all that much separating them, but I would personally go with the guy that's doing it against the best competition, and that would be Nicholas Kempf. But that wraps things up here for the second segment. In the final one, we're going to enter our predictions for the players that might stand out as MVP, top scorer, and where the USA might finish at the end of the tournament. But before we do that, a quick message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, and even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day might look like. Drip Drop is not your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix in a packet in the morning before the gym or during that midday slump if I need a little bit of an energy boost. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their very best with Drip Drop. All right, let's wrap up the show here looking at Team USA for the World Junior Championships. And this is a team that has won 2 consecutive World Juniors coming into this season. They won last year, they won the year before. they could become the first team to win 3 in a row since that dominant Team Canada stretch between 2005 and 2009. Just as a throwback, the 2005 Canadian World Junior roster may have been the best of all time. You had Sidney Crosby, Jeff Carter, Patrice Bergeron, Shea Weber. The list goes on. You got Hall of Fame inductees up and down the lineup. And I mean, hey, this is not that caliber of roster for Team USA here this season. But what I do think is that there's a fantastic amount of balance and that there's certainly a level of offensive depth with this team that can go head to toe with Team Canada and surpass any other team at this tournament. And the defensive core, I think, is really strong. It's balanced. You got a lot of guys that can break games open in a pinch, and it really is goaltending. If you can get a netminder that goes on a heater at this tournament, I think it's difficult to bet against Team USA. But I really do think that that gap between Team Canada and Team USA, that might be won or lost in goal. And right now, the advantage goes to the Canadians, but we'll see how things happen. A small tournament, you always see goaltenders go on heaters. You see netminders competing for goaltender of the tournament who weren't on anybody's radar coming into it. And maybe one of the American goaltenders is going to be that guy here this season. My personal prediction, I mean, I've watched these players for years and years and years. This is the roster that I am most intimately familiar with, that I've been watching the most closely up and down the lineup. I think a silver medal finish is my personal prediction. I think they make it all the way to the gold medal game and end up losing to Team Canada. The Canadian roster is going to be disgusting this season. They're likely going to get Michael Misa on loan from the San Jose Sharks. They're going to get Harrison Brunick on loan from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then they have all of these top 10 picks up and down the lineup, just filling in roster spots. There's so much to like with this roster for the Canadians, and I think it's going to be a really high task to beat that out for the Americans. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, how you think Team USA will fare, because again, there's so much skill and so much variety of talent on this team. Look, if James Hagens can deliver the type of MVP performance that he did at the U18 World Championships a year and a half ago, they've got a chance. They certainly have a chance. But if James Hagens ends up being good or great rather than outstanding, maybe that gap ends up increasing. So the 2 areas that I would really focus in on, or the 3 areas I would focus in on for the USA's chances to win gold this season, you're going to need a goaltender to go on a heater. You're going to need James Hagens to be MVP contender at this tournament, driving offense game in, game out. And you're going to need Cole Hutson to be just bar none the best defenseman at this tournament in terms of offensive creation, and maybe even challenging for like top scorer at the entire tournament, which he might. He certainly might. He's going to get the minutes. He's going to get the offensive zone starts. He's going to get the power play opportunities. He outscored every other player on Team USA at last year's World Juniors. There's a lot to like here, but again, I think those are the 3 areas that if they hit, the USA should be favorites. But if they don't, they might have to lose out this tournament to Team Canada. But again, maybe Team Canada implodes again, just as they did last season. So you never know. It's up in the air, but hopefully Canada learns from their mistakes and makes it a little bit more competitive between the 2 North American rivals here this season. And in terms of top scorer, I think for USA, it's really going to be a race between James Hagens and Cole Hutson for who wins that award, who scores the most points at this tournament. Top goal scorer has to be Cole Eiserman. If it's not Cole Eiserman, it's got to be disappointing for him because he's got the best shot. He's got the best goal scoring toolkit of any player at this tournament, let alone just on this American roster. And in terms of potential MVP of this team, I think it's Cole Hutson. He's the guy that I think can break games open. Look, James Hagens as well. He's going to have to contend for it, but you've got 2 guys that I think are going to be right up there in the MVP charts at this tournament. And that's my prediction. I'd love to hear your predictions down below as well if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And if you're your second listen, you're going to head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. But that is it here for today's episode. I appreciate you all tuning in and would love to keep the discussion going on, continuing in the comments down below. But I'm your host, Sebastian Heil. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. And I'll catch you listening again very, very soon.